What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, this is a special day. I get to talk about Brailled It, which is premiering at the 2026 SlamDance Film Festival. It's a feature documentary, and I'm really excited about it. Of course, I'm excited anytime that we have representation in film or even if it's in documentary form from the blind community, and that's what Braille that does. And it takes sort of a very accessible approach and approaches it in a brand spanking new way, and really makes people think about uh, what even is film, what even are we doing here anymore. So I got a screener for this a while ago. Uh, and full disclosure, I was then invited to be a part of like a summit, like an impact group on how to get this film out there, ideas for how to get blind communities and kids involved and excited about the film. From that perspective, of course, they wanted to know my thoughts on it at the beginning, which I was honest about, and I'll be honest here. So I'm always open with my bias. That's why all my reviews are free flowing and not structured, so that you can read through right through me. If you want to smell bullshit, then you can smell bullshit. So, Brailled It is uh, it's such an interesting concept in and of itself because it throws out the traditional convention that so many other filmmakers do. I'm both super intrigued to see how traditional critics take this movie, but also scared because in one hand they could be like, "Oh hell no," and then on the other hand they could be like, "Oh my god, this is like the most amazing reinvention of what is film to begin with." So, um, obviously I saw it with audio description because wouldn't that be bizarre if I did not see it with audio description? Just there's a film about blind kids with Braille and it has no audio description. um, so there's a competition that takes place where the youth of America, who are also blind and are learning Braille, compete in a series of challenges, based on like speed and accuracy, and within their different classes, to see how fast they can dictate things back and type and all that kind of stuff. And they take a lot of pride in what it is that they do, and they get to win these challenges, and they come back every year and they're competing. And so it's these kids, and they have friends, that they know, even though that they don't necessarily go to the same school or hang out the rest of the time. They get to see each other at this competition every year, and then they move up, because obviously you start off, if you're younger, you start off in a lower level category, and you move your way up through it. I wasn't a blind kid. I could see, and then I lost my vision, so I this was not my experience, but it was very interesting to watch the experience from these kids' perspectives, which is exactly what this film does. This film almost immediately just hands these kids a camera and then says go, but they're blind. So it's about what is it that they choose to film and when and how. So not only are they blind, but they're kids who aren't necessarily 100% thinking about, "Ooh, I want to do film," mainly because uh, most people don't want us to do film. The concept of film is sort of a luxury within the blind community. I mean, that's why there's audio description on so few things, is because it would be easier if they didn't have to deal with us. And so many people wonder how we still choose to watch films, or why we would want to, or what kind of jobs we can even have in film, despite the fact that I know people who are blind and still work in the industry. So it's tough to get the representation out there, but at the same time, uh, if you can get people excited when they're younger, then it builds sort of a stronger base and a foundation for them moving forward. It gets kids thinking about, well, what if I did go to a film program? What would that look like? And considering the The continued push for things that are not, superhero movies and sequels and remakes and reboots. There's something that's very unique, coming from a very specific perspective that you would get coming out of these blind kids and how they grew up and what they're choosing to shape their films for. Even if they only dabble in it from time to time, even if they go to film school and they're like, this isn't for me, it still is sparking an interest where they would not have had any before. Um, a lot of kids go to college thinking they're going to be one thing and then switch and do something else. I did. I think a lot of people do. They go in for one thing and they come out with something else. So um, that's what college is supposed to be for. And if we're incredibly restrictive in not letting people do that, then we're going to trap people into things that were never meant for them, but conceptually thought they were. That's the thing. I know I'm on a sidetrack. Let's jump to just a step to the left, step to the right. When we pigeonhole kids, oftentimes we forget that there are entire programs and majors that are just concepts and structures, and they're not real because they don't actually exist at a high school level. There are a whole bunch of things that you can't really dive into. You only get brushes with them. And suddenly, when you jump into a program in a 4-year school, if you make that your commitment, and then you realize, oh, I don't actually have the acumen for this. Oh, but financial aid has told me that I must stick to this. I have no other choice. Um, you're kind of forcing kids to do something that is not really their fault for finding out that they're either not good at or turns out isn't what they thought it was, don't want to do in the first place. But maybe that thing over there turns out I actually might be good at. They should be allowed to pivot. We should have a little bit more flexibility with kids in college. And I feel like the way that financial aid is shaping up in this country, we're not doing that anymore. So, and that rant, back to Brailled it. So, 3 kids are handed cameras. You know what? They didn't give their pronouns, but I'm gonna go with 2 boys and 1 girl. It's very just sort of like uh, in the moment. I don't want to say slice of life, because it's very voyeuristic, but you're taking it from their perspective. You're just kind of following them around, but the camera is them. They're being handed GoPros, and there isn't really like an involvement. There isn't people guiding actively on camera, like, "Ooh, look over there. Why don't you shoot that? What do you think about that? Oh, what?" You know. It's a lot of them interacting with their peers, and their peers are curious about the camera and like what it is that they're doing, part of this film project. Um, and then that means the camera isn't always going to be pointed for a sighted audience at exactly what you would expect it to be at, uh, because oftentimes our perspective of the world is not the same. I wear glasses a lot, hides the fact that I'm not maintaining eye contact with you because I can look at you without looking at you. So the uh, the lack of eye contact is one of those things that's interesting. So even if you teach kids like framing the shot and force them into a structure, they're still going to have a very unique perspective as to what it is and how it is, what it is that they're doing, and a different approach to it too. They're going to ask different questions. They're going to want different things and different answers. I think a rise in blind filmmakers could be very interesting. Now, this is just sort of to spark interest and show that the potential in kids to be excited about something that they were told that they really, this isn't for them. Why don't you do this other thing instead? Why don't you take the more realistic career path? And I think it doesn't have to be so limiting. And I think that's what's great about Brailled It, is that it shows kids the possibilities of what they could do. Each one of these kids is adorable. I mean, they're all fine. Even the ones that aren't holding the cameras, I loved all these kids. I was invested in their stories and watching them sort of evolve and choosing when to turn and turn off the cameras. And it's structured in a way, director David Grabius has come through and cut the film in a way that it supports it, much as if you were to watch kids like competing in a spelling bee, right? If this was a spelling bee and there's a whole bunch of like sighted kids running up there on stage and you got to see it just in a traditional format, And they were all in competition phases. You would see them, and some of them would be there for repeated years. They'd be like, "I'm back again for my second year. Really excited to be here. Hope I win this year." And then you see them lose, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm really sad," and they go cry. Or you see them enjoying the hotel, enjoying the company. It's all that kind of stuff. These are blind kids. It's a Braille competition. So the film is incredibly accessible for what it is, because this is exactly the kind of format that you've seen before, whether it's in a film about kids in debate camps, like Apple had Boys State and Girls State, kids coming together for that kind of thing, and then coming back for multiple years and being able to represent each other. We've seen this before. You just haven't seen it with blind kids in a Braille competition yet. That is what you haven't seen. Moreover, you haven't seen it where the camera has been given to blind kids at a Braille competition. So, I think, and I hope that everybody will check this out, just simply because there will be nothing else like it this year. I can promise you that there will be nothing else like it, because there's no other film that's going to come out in 2026 where they handed blind kids cameras and said go, and then sort of let them in an unstructured way uh, just film something. And then they came along and edited and spliced together the three different storylines. So, it's under 90 minutes from what I remember. And that was one of the things I said at probably my only qualm about the movie, because you're like, oh, he's just gonna just do nothing but praise it. Actually, I kind of wanted, and I understand the argument for not, because the film is not, that's not the point of it. But I did kind of want a little bit more of an introduction to each one of these kids in the beginning, just to sort of at the very beginning, getting to see them sort of before they put the camera on, from a non them holding the camera perspective. I still think there's a value in that. And even months later, I think introducing the kids and giving us a stronger foundation at the beginning, also a sighted audience, while the film is not necessarily made for them, would get a lot out of seeing the transition, the difference between watching and seeing a kid playing with a camera and getting to feel it from the perspective of how does a kid approach a camera. I was thinking about this too, because the idea was like, well, it's supposed to be the kids holding a camera. It's like, yeah, but when the camera's in their hands, it's really hard to show them also feeling the camera and playing around with the buttons and all those kind of things, the exploratory phase of that. And I think that's kind of what's missing a little bit. It does require the film to break its format a little bit at the beginning and show them, um, not in first person, which is kind of what the film basically ends up being after that. But I do still think that there's value in that. I think there's value in saying, here's this one, and you see him and he's smiling and he's unboxing the camera or whatever and playing around with it and learning how to turn it on and off, and he's not wearing it yet, he's not shooting himself or anything like that, he's just feeling the camera for the first time, maybe asking some questions, whatever it is. And then you see that with the other kids, and then they put them on, and then from that point it becomes their film. But I think if we want kids to be interested and excited about the exploration of film, there's that initial unboxing moment. I mean, there are whole YouTube channels devoted to unboxings. We've uh, like we secretly want to live Christmas morning every morning for the rest of our lives. Like we just like we need to unbox things all the time. We're like, oh my god, guys, I got a new package from Amazon. What is it? I'm so excited. I'm gonna unbox this on my YouTube channel, even though I know what I ordered. It's it's just a thing, like an unboxing thing. So I think people would have gotten it, and enjoyed it and seen the transition. I don't think the transition would have been that surprising either. I don't think it would be like completely jarring, because the argument is that it's all from one specific perspective to prove a point, but you get that anyway. I mean, like the whole rest of the film is that perspective. It's sort of like, um, if you were to introduce a film, right, that was in color, and you had your protagonist, and he's like walking around in the normal world, and then he walks through a door and suddenly it's black and white for the rest of the movie. It's like, yeah, I mean, you showed a transition and then you're black and white for the rest of the movie, and it's and you it, if anything, it emphasizes the transition phase, and it shows like this is what you're used to, and this is the transition and how this is different. Not that it's not completely evident with the way that these kids are holding the camera, and not necessarily shooting in any sort of, framing uh, rule of thirds or anything like that format. But there's enough here that I think if I had to pick one thing, if I could change one thing about the movie, it would have been just a little bit more with each one of the kids at the beginning, not in their format, not in the, cameras. I've got the camera on me already and go, but the sort of beginning moment of it, the handing them the camera, being like, here you go. What do you do with it? Like, what do you, and watching them unbox it, or in my case, getting to hear the audio description of them unbox it. And that first time when they're pulling it out and they're like, oh, camera, cool. So this is that, and then this is okay. So I get that, and and then seeing them figure it out and talking about how excited they are, or, whatever. I don't know, but that's kind of the little thing. I think it's a very charming documentary, and it's one that means a lot to me. I'm a blind film critic. My score was already going to be skewed before anybody like asked me my opinion on the movie. Even if I hadn't been, my disability documentaries generally skew up with me. So, yeah, because our representation is so marginalized as it is, that when somebody comes along with a story to tell about any disability, I generally get more excited. Whether it's Patrice, the movie, that movie that was on Hulu, I thought that was extraordinary. Whether it's Deaf President Now, it doesn't have to even be my disability. It just has to be a film that presents it in a way that is powerful, and a story that needs to be told. And I think Brailled It does that, but Brailled It does it in a way that is accessible for everybody. It's accessible for family members, it's accessible for kids, it's accessible for parents, it's accessible for grandparents, it's accessible for everybody. The sighted audience just has to know what they're walking into. The only concern I would have would be the sighted audience remembering, because I'm old enough to remember the Blair Witch experience and people going in the theaters and throwing up because they had never seen anything like Blair Witch before. And the shaky cam of it all caused people to have motion sickness in the movie theater. It's a real thing. It actually happened. Since then, I think we've had enough shaky cam. We've had enough found footage that it doesn't happen anymore. People are more used to seeing it. So I think because of that, if Braille had been the first thing, I'd be more concerned, like if we had never done shaky cam before. But it'll just be interesting to see people reacting to non-traditional framing, because essentially that's what's at play here. But I'm really excited about the possibilities for this documentary, and I'm pretty high on this, like freakishly high. That I was going to be either way, whether or not anybody ever talked to me about it or not, if it just come across my pathway, like traditionally as a screener, which it did, by the way. That's the funny thing is, not only did I get it as a, like way before did somebody reach out to the blind film critic and say, hey, what are your thoughts? But I also later got it from their publicity team. I had said to the guy, I was like, dude, I already have it. I've seen this. Thank you, though. I didn't want to feel like I was not responding to the publicist. Um, but I thought that was kind of cute. Anyway, that's my story. That's my Brailled It story. So hopefully that you will enjoy this. The audio description was made by them. I mean, with a lot of tender love and care, I thought. It's interesting to see it not made by one of the big houses, to hear it sort of made from an indie perspective and it also be good. Because sometimes when filmmakers make their own audio description, or somebody involved with the film is responsible for their own audio description, and it can be, it can be like, I don't know. But no, this is great. Yeah, I thought it really supported the film. I was never lost. Obviously, there's going to be quite a bit of description, but the kids do talk, so it doesn't have to talk. It's not going to talk over the kids. There's a lot to like here, guys. There's a lot to like here. I just changed a little bit at the beginning and show them, give them a little bit more space, a little bit more time, and go from there. I'm gonna give it a 9.7 out of 10. It's one of the higher scores I've ever given, because I've been really excited to talk about this film for I think almost 2 months, and I'm excited to finally be doing it. So hopefully people will see Brailled It, and embargo just dropped. Hopefully there's a little bit of a glitch with my tomato meter submission in terms of accessibility with screen reader technology that I hope I can get it fixed so that I can actually get my review on the tomato meter. But right now, at least the embargo's dropped so I can do this. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.